Okay. I think it's going live now, so I think we're good to go. Um, I see the little uploading ticker. So, um, yeah. So, hello, everybody. I'm going to make sure I open up the chat here so I can keep an eye in case somebody shows up. Not sure if we will have anybody showing up in chat today, but if anybody wants to join in, we're having our first time doing this subs and grinders live stream submission party. So I know it's kind of it's lunchtime for everybody's lunchtime is somebody's dinner time or nap time. So, but this is if you have lunch and you want to do some submissions with us whenever you're watching this, maybe later, or if you're live with us, that's great. Um, what we're going to be doing today is trying to find some homes for our work, or maybe a better way that we've taken to expressing this is we're accumulating rejections. So that's our goal here, trying to get as many rejections as possible, and maybe eventually sometime we will miss and end up with an acceptance of one of our stories. So all of us, we're kind of on here trying to look for some homes for one or two of our stories. And so we're all submitting, we're doing it live. Um, and yeah, so this is not your typical striving novelist support group. We are actually angling for rejections today. So I don't know. Does everybody have something to get rejected today to submit?
No. I do.
Yeah,
I'm ready.
I got a rejection. Not that you should only submit to one place. I got a rejection yesterday, or day before yesterday, though, that from a novel excerpt publisher or a literary journal that had put out a call for excerpts, and I submitted it to like 20 places, but
that's real good.
And I haven't received all 20 rejections yet. I'm keeping count though, but I'm going to submit it to one or two places today to replace some of those rejections. Someone who's done a lot of submitting, Alex, I think it was, suggested that you treat every rejection as a ticket to submit to two places. And so my goal today is to submit to two places that take excerpts.
So Jack, I think there's a contest, first chapter contest that ends today. Craft, I think is the name. I'm looking for it.
Craft, is that what you said?
Craft, and I think they have a first chapter contest. And for some reason, I think it ends today. So that might be, I'll see if I can find it. I had an email somewhere. Now, let me see if I can find it. Let's see. Oh, here we go. 24 hours until closing. Chapter 1 prize. It's not Craft Magazine. It's called Chapter 1 prize. I'll put it in. TheGutsyGreatNovelist.com. Yes. Okay, putting it in the chat. Where's the chat?
This might be a topic for future conversation, but I'm wondering, how many rejections do you guys get before you think maybe it's me? Maybe the story needs another revision.
Yeah, that's a good question. It's hard to, I don't know. Is there a rule? 5? Is that?
Ignore that.
10, 20? No, that was perfect.
5 is low. There's so much that goes into not getting, getting a rejection that has nothing to do with the writing that, I feel like 5's low, Alex. Yoda.
It depends on what kind of rejections. If they're like
That's true.
personal rejections and they're like giving you the same feedback, maybe if they're like saying, hey, here's some feedback and and it's all the same and it's all, I need to, this scene isn't, or this character, something isn't working here. And you're like, okay, well, they're in agreement, I guess. Maybe I should look into it. But if it's
I had,
all like, yeah.
I had one story, I think I got published and it was rejected 16 times before.
Okay.
And I thought that was, I mean, I'm still holding out. I'll get 100 rejections if I believe in it. I mean, I'll take a look at it every now and then, but I think it takes a while sometimes. The markets are so, um, I guess it's just the amount of submissions they take are so few, and the percentage is under 1%. It's it's really hard, and it has to fit their theme sometimes, and they might have published a story just like yours the month before. There's so many things. We had that one site that we were looking at where there are different tiers of rejection letters. And if I get a rejection letter and they're just like, good luck placing it somewhere. Thanks for sending it in. Then I'm like, they had no interest at all, or nobody read it or whatever. But if it says something like, every now and then I'll get one that says something like, we really admire, there was much to be admired. Please try us again, or, any sort of encouragement to send them something again makes me realize that they found something valuable in the story and maybe it just wasn't right for the magazine. So I keep trying. I think it's a numbers game.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that right there just tells you if they take 1%, if that's
Hmm.
the average, then you have to submit, all things being equal, just net numbers, statistics, you have to submit 100 times to get one. But everything isn't
All right.
obviously equal.
I gave up too early, I guess. The short
Oh.
story I'm going to try today got rejected 7 times. So I guess that's not
Oh,
enough.
yeah, just
I'll submit it. I don't know.
if you believe in it, if you think there's a problem, then go ahead and, then revise
70 times 7 is the number we're looking for.
Yeah. Eileen, go back and read those. Go back and read the letters, the messages they sent you if they were through submittable or however you got them. Go back and read them and see if maybe you just kind of didn't read past the no thank you. Maybe they said please submit other work, or we hope to hear back from you soon. There's a lot of if I'll mark them on Duotrope. I keep track of all. Instead of making my own spreadsheet, I just use the submission um, chart on Duotrope, and you mark whether it's a personal rejection or just a form rejection. And anytime they encourage me to submit again, I put personal rejection, and then I can go back and look at a story, and maybe I submitted it 20 times, but I had 10 personal rejections. So I'm not giving up on that yet.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, do a trope. So that's actually a good point. How do you keep track, of your duotropes an option? I think submission, does Submission Grinder have one also? There's places where you can kind of, register and submittable will keep track for you for stuff that goes through submittable, I think, if you have an account,
Yeah,
right?
if it goes through submittable, and you can also filter it by story title, so you can say, oh wow, I always have to check to make sure I haven't sent my story somewhere already if I'm doing submissions.
So you don't do simultaneous.
I do,
Yeah.
but I'll have to check, if say the Rumpus is having a fiction contest. I know I sent something to the Rumpus at one point. I just couldn't remember what, so I had to go back out to submittable and check. But I like Duotrope because there's lots of statistics on it. And you can keep track of how many days it took them to respond, whether it was personal or there's lots of good filters on Duotrope. And I want to say it's $50 a year. It's not terrible.
Okay, I was going to ask so $50 a year for if it's a writing cost, you can put it on you can talk to your tax person. I have a spreadsheet that I keep, and I have like a little tab for this story and a tab for this story, and then it lists like the places, and I have, the date that I submitted it and the date that it was rejected, just in case I don't get a rejection, then I know it's been, a cajillion days. I probably can just assume that one's and move on in some areas for notes. And I just kind of keep that's what I personally do. But I can definitely see the value if it's giving you some more visualizations and statistics in having the spreadsheets are a pain in the ass too. So, um, but um, yeah.
I'm doing my first one to Granta right now. Granta
All right.
unsubmittable.
Are they open right?
Impressive.
They're open, I assume.
Yeah, they just opened on the 1st, and I'm closing the 31st for both fiction and nonfiction.
Okay. That's a good one.
I put it in the chat. It's not a link in the chat for some reason. But
All right. Let me see where.
Alex, you also put that rejection wiki in the chat. That's the one where you can pull up the different tier rejection letters. So you can see if the rejection letter you got from a specific literary magazine is personal or a form, or they have 2 or 3 tiers, and I find that helpful. Thanks for sharing that, Alex.
yeah, the higher tier rejections I feel like are double wins.
Mm-hmm.
A rejection's a win, and a higher rejection's a double win.
So, like, if you can get a rejection letter from the New Yorker, is that like a home run?
They don't tell you. New Yorker, you have to reject yourself.
Stacy got a rejection from the New
That
Yorker.
means
that's
that
high
means
tier, I think.
that's a high tier. If they responded to her, that's definitely high tier.
That's the story that she published in the quarterly and anthology from Story Quarterly.
Okay.
She also got a rejection from Story Quarterly for her following story, her next story that she submitted. I want to make 2 quick points. One is talking about the content of rejection letters. I also think it's a double if you get a highly detailed reaction to your work that offers critique at all. And I also think it's a double if you if they ask you to submit something else, like if they ask you to keep submitting to them. And the other one is that Michael was telling a personal story there when he was giving an example of reading feedback. I recently in a writers group with him. We studied read and critiqued a story that he wrote some time ago and submitted a lot of places, and he told us that he got personal rejections, personalized rejections, and found one of them to be enough to really make major edits in this story. So it's kind of like submitting to a big writers group where people don't often respond, but sometimes respond very meaningful. And bonus point, I'm looking at the suggestion that I just got from Michelle, and it's a really interesting contest, and I'm going to enter it. But here's the point about entering contests. You have to look at their rules, because you can rule out yourself pretty easily. And one of the things in the rules is that's pretty common is don't put your name on every page. Especially in this case, it has to be submitted in double space format on A4 or 8.5 by 11 formatting, and it has to be double space. They said if it's 1.15, which is the default in some cases, it is rejected. and you lose your $20 fee to enter it. And so you know, I'm glad I did that reading, because I don't always read it carefully, but I probably would have been 1.15. Probably would have been rejected right away. And another thing I saw in the FAQ for this contest is how quickly they respond, and that for me is an important thing in submissions, especially if we're chasing rejections, as Michael said. Um, this response comes by the deadline is today, and the winners are announced at the end of this month. So I think that's a pretty quick a response for a contest that has stories up to 5,000, or has first chapters up to 5,000 words.
That's true. Yeah, make sure you don't pay attention, because unfortunately, or fortunately, I don't know, a lot of these places get a lot of submissions, and not following the rules, even if your story is great, is going to get you rejected. So make sure. Some of them have different rules. I've seen some of them where they don't want your name on it. They want to do blind readings. Some of them want to know what's attached, who's attached to it. Some of them, most of them don't care about cover letters, but some of them do ask for a cover letter. The formatting, some of them have particular fonts that they specify. Yeah, that's true.
I entered one recently, and it wasn't through Submittable. It wasn't a contest. It was just a regular submission, but they wouldn't allow any attachment, any file. You had to cut and paste your story into the document. And that was in their submission guidelines, you know, several bullet points down. So I think it's wise to read through all of them, even if sometimes you scan them and you think you know what you're looking at, but there are a lot of places, like if they say blind and your name's on it, they don't even look at it. They just reject it.
Mm-hmm.
Are we all going to start working on submissions now?
I am actually typing one in right now. I'm following Alex down the Granto tunnel, since I did not since they're open. Right, so.
By the way, for cover letters, this is almost always all that I write. I go super simple.
Oh yeah, nothing
Just do
much.
nothing. I do. Thanks for considering.
No, just very little. Yeah, just please find attached my story for your consideration. Here's the word count and the genre. Thanks for your time and consideration. That's all you need. If you want to, if I have heard, I've heard different things. Most of the time they say, you know, if you've had other published stuff, go ahead and put it in, but they're supposed to not care about it. But I have also heard of publications where, for example, just as one example, that they would have, like, as they're coming in, if you have been published by that magazine before, they will put you in this pile. If you have been published but somewhere else before, they put you in this pile. And if you have been not published at all before, they put you in this pile. And then they would give those probably to different people to read, and might have some different priority. There's probably a different mindset as they're going into each pile, even if they do try and approach it fairly. I don't know. But so if you have a previous publication, I think it's probably worth putting it in as my work has previously appeared in such and such place. If you don't worry about it. But also don't go into, you know, this is where I went to school, and this is where uh, I took a long road trip to find myself, and this was where I spent my gap year, and this is my, long biography. That's not going to help with this part, of this. might get in the way.
I have a question. Do you think if you have received a positive rejection letter where they said something to you like, there was much to be admired about your work, blah, 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 do you think you bring that up in your letter to them? Or I remember something about this when we were at the residency, someone saying, like, and how do you do that? Like, thank you for inviting me to submit again.
That seems like a good, simple way to say it.
Even if it's been over a year.
Maybe.
That's true.
If there's an editor, if you have the editor, okay, so this is something I have heard as advice. If there's an editor whose name is on it for the like fiction editor, this person, put their name, like dear Bob Saget, editor of the Full House magazine. You want to have that name there, which I think it just shows that you care and that you're paying attention. It's not the most critical thing, but it just is. He probably has someone else reading it for Bob probably has someone else reading it for him right now. The editor probably has someone else reading it for them as a first pass, maybe, but
Yeah.
you don't know. But that might be a good thing to put if there was some personal. If you have some personal connection to that editor, I don't think it would hurt to put it in and maybe help but don't everything I've heard is don't go overboard on this. Like, don't try too hard in this magazine for this stuff. Maybe for if you have like a novel, this is different. Like if you're submitting a novel versus, I'm talking like short stories, right? So, and anybody else who has some other, suggestions or tips, if you're live, throw it in the chat or throw it in the comments under this. If you happen to be, share this with people who are watching this afterwards, because it is important.
Thanks.
But yeah, for example, with Granta, I'm just putting, please find attached my short story, here's the word count. This is the genre. Your consideration, I'm putting, that I'm regular contributors, Story Street writers. Thanks for your time and attention. That's what I'm throwing in there personally. But yeah. But yeah, I'm going to try and throw a couple of them this round. I am also digging up on the submission grinder right now, doing a search for other places that I can share this one.
The London magazine also opened up on the 1st of March. So I just popped that in the chat too.
Nice. Okay. I feel like we should definitely share that in our Subs and Grinders newsletter whenever that one shows up, because that would be a good target for, I think, some people, like an aspirational, even if you don't submit that often, just throw it in. It's good practice.
Yeah, I should have thought about that. I meant to include that in the Subs and Grinders. I don't think I finished my list.
How much time are you guys spending on looking through the journals that you're not familiar with to see how good the fit is for your submission, right? I'm on Do a Trope right now. My short story is a little bit tricky because it's got some religious overtones and there's not a lot of market for that. But I've got 8 up here and I've only heard of one of them.
I think Image Journal is.
So how much time do you guys invest?
I think it's hard to spend. You can't spend an hour per journal, right? but I try and do like a
No.
random 3. I'll do like a random selection of 3. You know, pop, 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 scan through 3 short stories, and if it feels like mine could fit-ish, I'll send it.
I think that it depends. Like if it's one of my primary, if you're a big reader in a given space, and that's one of the things is market awareness. Like if you're writing stuff that this is something that might be like an interesting article for Story Street to talk about one time is read what you write, right? If you're writing if you typically read cozy mysteries and you're trying to write, you know, some horror novels or something or horror short stories, you're not, you know, there's a market unfamiliarity. There's a lot of stuff that you were probably misaligned on. And that goes with short stories too. Like I've found myself reading an awful lot of sci-fi short stories. Now I don't subscribe to every science fiction magazine. There's like I like to write those and I like to read those. And there's maybe like a half dozen of those that I might read. There's more than that that I could submit to. A lot of the times though, I'll hit my ones that I'm most familiar with that I care about, then I'll know that they're a fit or not. Like this one only takes reprints, or this one has to be with the you know these word counts. They'll sell you in the notes, you know, what they if there's particular things that they care about. Like this one is very particular that if it's science fiction, you want to be it has to be like the science part of it has to be part of the core plot elements, right? They're not going to care about it if it's a romantic love story that just happens to have time travel, right? That's part of usually they'll say in their guidelines and they'll say, you know, no cats walking through walls, no, you know, whatever that they get tired of seeing, they usually put that. If it's part of their guidelines, you know, if it fits their guidelines and I'm not necessarily familiar with it, I'll probably go ahead and submit. I might not spend money on a submission for, you know, that's something also like to be, you know, whether it's a paid submission versus a free submission. But uh, if that's not important enough to them to put in their guidelines, and my story fits their guidelines, otherwise, you know, it's okay. I'll go ahead and submit it. It's not going to hurt anything. If it's something that's in their guidelines, though, and it says we absolutely do not like this, and I keep submitting that, that's probably going to give me a bad name to them. If they recognize me, you know, like, oh my gosh, this guy keeps writing these stories about these cats. My gosh, and we put in there, don't see, we even put his name in there, dude, Michael. Do not submit us any stories of cats in our guidelines, and I didn't read it, and I keep submitting it. They're, you know, that's something, but um, yeah. Like I think I would just go with their guidelines if I'm not familiar with them. Because there's only so much. Yes, I know I've heard that from editors too. Read our magazine and tell if you're, you know, I can only read so many magazines. You know, I can't read 100 magazines a month if I want to try and find them, you know, just for every what if I write in multiple genres and I have to read 200 magazines a month for each one for each genre, you know, that's not tenable. So I would start with the ones you're familiar with though, just because then that is also you supporting the magazines that you're best best happy with.
Okay, my next one's New England Review. They're a rare one because they actually let you submit up to 20,000 words, so you could do a novella if you wanted.
Oh, nice. Maybe I have some novellas. All right, I'm in Granta. I'm going to. This one is interesting because it's a literary, but also has kind of a fantastical element to it. So I'm also going to go to Beneath Ceaseless Skies, which I am told by Submission Grinder is open right now.
Beneath Ceaseless Skies, I think, is the one that doesn't take sci-fi. They only take fantasy.
Well, this is fantastical, so that works for me, I guess.
Perfect.
Literary adventure fantasy. So, yeah, so we'll try this one.
Beneath Ceaseless Skies also very good because they pay 8 cents a word.
Oh, well, that would be. Yeah, how do you prioritize your list? Now, I know Michelle has shared. There's actually more. I've seen, I think more than one web page does this, but like they have a listing of the ranking of the top 1,000 literary magazines. Obviously, if your genre, you might have a different list, and they have different criteria. They, different awards they've gotten have different rankings and what they pay and how, all of that, and it kind of goes into it. If you have to make your own list, do you go from the pay down? Do you go from like number of awards down? Like, is there a prestige thing? Do you have your own?
I think my two goals, I'm not as concerned about the pay because even the ones that pay, it's not that much money. So
Yeah.
I do like using what I think it's the Brex 1,000 literary, top
Mhm.
1,000 literary magazines. And I do like looking at that list because it will show you what awards they nominate for, which the literary awards, that is one of my goals. But I also like it also shows you um social media followers, how many followers. Like I do like the idea of more people reading what I write as opposed to maybe a higher rated literary magazine with a smaller audience. So I think it just depends on what your goal is. You kind of look at the different what you're looking to get out of your published story. Mine, for the most part, I want to share. I want a lot of people to read my stories and hopefully enjoy them. Um,
Mhm.
and I have my goal of like moving up the list. Each time I get a story accepted somewhere, I look what number it is on the list, and that's just kind of a game for me. Maybe I'll send my next story a few numbers up.
I definitely agree with that. Like, I think my goal is to be read. But one of my goals is to like be paid. I have two publications and they were both like not paid. And I don't care if it's just like a token payment, but I would like to just like once like have my art valued like,
Mhm.
with a financial payment. So
Well, and the
There's-
the list of the rating too, I do think that helps you if you are writing a book length, whether it's fiction or a memoir, whatever you're writing. If you want to have a book published, I do think the I guess I don't know if the right word's prestigious, but the more recognized the magazines are, maybe the more attention they garner from agents. I think that's probably a fair statement, or at least if they have a lot of readership, that is important to agents because that means that might translate into, you know, people who buy the books. So
there's actually a good payment is, obviously, if you want to make a living, uh, that's one thing, but there are also some professional organizations that require you to have, like, Science Fiction Fantasy Writers of America. If you have accumulated so much in payment over, then you can qualify for, like, as a certain type of member. They have, and I think it applies a lot to their, like, voting rights to be, for awards and stuff like that. So um, the professional, memberships have certain definitions. So there's a value, and obviously, as supporting the arts, there's to me, there's value in the idea that artists get paid rather than devaluing the work that they do, um, constantly being done on donation basis. Um, yeah.
All right, I'm 3 down. Granta, London Magazine, New England Review.
Nice.
I'm trying to do 2 more.
Boulevard's open right now too.
Nice.
Mm. I do believe I have not done this one yet, so I'll do that. Is my keyboard too clicky? Right. No.
A
Okay.
little
Good.
clicky. No, it's clicky.
Michael, it is delightfully clicky. I can hear it just enough to know that we're working with writers who spend a lot of time at their keyboards and have particular requirements for the feel and sound of a keyboard. I
Yeah.
love it.
This one's supposed to be tactile rather than too clicky, so it's
Does anybody have a fairy tale to submit? Friction magazine. It closes March 7th. They're taking fairy tales.
oh
And the
interesting.
entry fee is only $2.50, or the submission fee.
Fiction magazine, huh?
Friction. I like that name.
We'll try it. We'll look it up. I may have a fairy tale. Is that fictioninc.com?
No, it's friction. F
Oh,
and then in
friction.
parentheses R. Friction.
Oh yeah, I love that.
They have
I've
really
seen,
cool art.
yeah, I've seen their magazine on the shelf before. That's okay. That'd be great. I would love that just because of the name of the magazine.
It's great.
It's just getting published there would be an honor to be associated with such creative namers. All right.
All right, Boulevard done. Now I'm gonna do
Good
friction. I'm gonna
job.
do 5.
Nice.
Alex, you're so fast. I don't know how you do it so quickly.
I just copy and paste the cover letter. That's the thing that always takes me the longest, is like having to retype the cover letter every time. And I have an Excel file with like, because I keep my own files, so I have the link to the exact submission page for each magazine.
Another thing I like to do is go to submittable under discover, and you can put in fiction, flash fiction, essay, whatever you want to put in. And then it comes up by the deadline date. And I always find that if something's close to the deadline, then you usually hear back from them faster, unless they state otherwise. But
That's actually a good. So your timing when there's opening windows
mhm.
is an interesting thing to consider. Um, being early in their opening window might put you at the maybe at the top of a running list, and then you have to be like knocked off rather than at the end of the window. You might have to like knock somebody off of the list, right? So
Good point.
that's something to. But whenever what's the if you're at the end of it, maybe you're fresh in their minds as they're going through. Yeah, I'm definitely running behind Alex here. I have just done my second one. Friction, that's a good one though. That's I'm gonna see what they. Let me look through their submission guidelines.
I'm still on my first one because they have formatting requirements that are pretty restrictive. And again, I would have wasted $20 if I hadn't read the formatting rules. And also, thank you, Michelle, for your suggestion. It's a really good thing that we're doing here. It's not just motivating me; it's giving me places to submit.
Okay, I'm glad.
Is this a contest in Friction that's this particular one for the fairy tales, or is that what they're?
I think it was just a call. I put in, hold on. I found it in submittable.
Okay.
Hold on.
I
I'll
think
see if
I'm
I can.
gonna add a couple of these to our subs and grinders article because I think we missed a couple. This
Yeah,
this is
That's
helpful.
weird.
Maybe we should do this before we make that, just so that we can kind of things that we go through.
Yeah, it's there. So there's, if you put friction in and it has a parenthesis around the R,
Yeah.
if you put it in Discover Opportunities, you'll see it come up. It's the Friday, March 7th deadline, friction fairy tale submissions. There's a bunch of different ones too. They have a nonfiction contest. That's May 3rd.
Okay. Contests. Let me see.
Fiction.
Spring
This is
2025.
the fairy tale isn't, yeah, the fairy tale isn't a contest. It's just a call for submissions.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll just go ahead and put it in there. Oh, here it is. Yeah, there's a special. Interesting. Okay. Sign in. We'll do this.
Okay, I have a question. So, Friction asks if this would be my debut publication. I haven't published any fiction, but I have published one poem. So, do you think this counts as a debut fiction, or do you think it's just debut in
Oh,
general?
that. This is a good question. Or is
You
it
know,
your debut?
You could
Hmm.
I said
you
in
could
my
note
cover
it.
letter, I'm published in fiction, but I'm published in poetry.
Yeah, I think that covers you. Go ahead and click it in.
I'll click it.
If
To me, it
anyone from
definitely feels
Friction
different.
happens to see this, this is the first time I've come across that as a question in a submission form.
I like the question because I feel like it gives a better chance for.
Yeah. All right, I'm doing my marionette one for Friction for fairy tales.
All right, like Jack, I had to do some reformatting, but just to my cover letter, because they had like specifications for the cover letter. So
Nice.
first submission done.
Excellent. Yeah, an awful lot of. There we go. Yeah, this one, the one I submitted to last, wanted to have your name and title in the header, and this one is no identifying marks, no name or anything, because they want to read it blind. So making sure that the file that you're sending is in the right format is important. So because I could see, especially if you're trying to be anonymous, you want, you know, if you, the name's not in there, you could potentially go find it. But if you're trying to be anonymous, there's no way to take that back once you know you're trying to do blind reading. If it's in there, there's no avoiding it. So so I've gotten 3. Alex has probably done like 20 so far. Right? You got 2.
Just got the friction one in.
Nice. Okay. So you're at 4, 5.
Alex, are your reading fees adding up quickly? Are you dealing with many places that are free, or?
No, it's all. It was the first 2 are £3.50, which is like $4.50 USD. So I think I'm at 18 or 20 bucks.
Oh.
But I usually only do 5 at a time, so it's only 15, 20 bucks.
So right now, oh sorry, the Forge literary magazine, they're taking fiction and nonfiction, and it's a $3 tip jar submission fee. So check that one out too. I'm sending one in there.
I try to, if possible, and this I think is when you're doing literary fiction, I think there's more often reading fees. I've noticed the science fiction fantasy publications typically don't as much compared to whenever I'm looking at these, especially I guess the higher up the scale they are, probably to discourage having too many unserious submissions. Um, the high the higher up the scale, which the more popular magazines, obviously, like Granta and um, notes to take for whenever we open up our start taking submissions for the Story Street review here.
All right,
Yeah.
I think I'm gonna have to sign off because I'm heading to physical therapy.
Oh, well, okay.
Knock out my submissions before I go.
Yeah.
Good job, Alex.
I think it's good. I think this has been good, productive for me. This is definitely more submission than I typically do in a week. So, but this is I'm going to try and do this more often, at least something every week or two. And then if we do this once a month, I think this got a lot of value. Just reminding me, it's valuable to me, reminding me to actually go ahead and do this because this is the part I get stuck on myself.
I get that. I get too, like, I probably could have sent that a lot faster than I did. I get too precious in the like triple and then far beyond that checking. Like,
Yeah, that's what I'm doing. I'm still on the first one, but I'm gonna stay here and finish it.
Mm-hmm.
I really appreciate doing this, but I also miss our normal Story Street meetings where we talk about what we're planning to do over the next week.
Mm-hmm.
And we do have 5 minutes left. So I hope it's okay if I suggest, I know we didn't talk about this before, if we just run through really quickly and each say our plans for what we're going to do in our writing lives next week.
Alex, go first.
I am still deciding what my goal for the next 2 months before graduation will be. So picking the book or the whatever to really focus on after graduating. Thank you. I'll probably have to bounce now, but
Hi, Alex.
yeah.
Bye.
I'm still recovering from turning my thesis in last week, so I may. I heard back. I don't have any formatting issues, so I'm excited about
That's
that.
good.
I'm waiting to hear from Gail. I think I have to turn it into a PDF and then hand it in for grading. That's the next step. So I think I'm just going to spend some time submitting my short stories that I have that I'm working on, and maybe I need to start right back up because I promised myself to finish the manuscript by December. So I'm gonna take a day or a couple days off and then get back to trying to keep up with the same amount of pages that I've been doing for turning in every couple months.
I am going to continue submitting because I was slow and I had a higher mental goal of that. So I'm going to continue submitting today and then get back into writing routine. And yeah.
Good.
I'm
Yes.
I'm gonna submit at least two, even though I'm still working on my first one. I'm gonna stick around. I've got another hour allocated to working after this on the business side of writing, and so I'm gonna get two, and my intention is to get two every week. So this makes my two a little bit easier to jump into it on
That's
a
100 a
Monday.
year.
Yeah, that's 100 a year, and I was inspired by Alex's celebration of getting 100 submissions. Um, I am also going to keep doing the only part of writing I've been successful at for the last month, and that is getting my butt in the chair and trying. And I keep believing that if I keep trying, it's going to come, and someday I think it will.
Good deal. Eileen?
I'm going to finish this submission. Actually, it'll be the first one of the year. I've sort of let that whole thing slide. So it's thanks for reinvigorating that because I'm not going to get anywhere if I don't put my stuff out there.
It's important.
And then I'll just be trying to keep up with my journal as we, head further into New Zealand.
That's good. Yeah, this is kind of a support group thing too. Like working through. I really feel like this fits here. We might find a different home to separate these out in the future, but for now, I think it fits here. I'm gonna actually my goal like last week was to actually submit a couple, and I did one, and today I've done 3 times as many as I did last week. So I'm gonna actually make my goal here to go ahead and keep submitting some more this week because as far as new writing goes, I have some editing to do on the podcast. So that's my other main goal. So I'm working on that, hoping to get the first episode start dropping next week, and then following up with those, and then yeah, I'll get back to my writing once I've a little more organized than I was before. Once I've got that done, so yeah. Thanks everybody who participated and submitted some things. If you come upon this and viewing after the fact as you're submitting, go ahead and drop a comment in this because the recording is going to be up. Hopefully this is helpful and inspiring to you who are viewing this later in the future. Well, I guess you're present. Now's the future, but now it's your future. Anyway, back to science fiction here. Drop a comment. Let us know how this was. If you liked it, if it's helpful for you, if you submitted someplace, if you're found some place to submit, that is success. Like because you don't get published without submitting. So submitting is your first success. Get out there and do it. And come back and join us again. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Check us out at storystreetwriters.com and at the articles. We actually every month we have been trying to share a kind of a list of submission opportunities as an inspiration amongst our other articles. So you can check that out. This month we'll probably be editing it after this because I think I found a couple that I've found valuable to me. So yeah, check it out. Thanks everybody, and see you later. All right, live stream done. Things are uploading.
I thought that was fun and very
Wow.
productive.